Yes, ladies and gentlemen, it's Monday, and that means it's time for the WWE Raw Wrestling Inc. after show. And have we got a show for you? The world title has a new contender. The Intercontinental Champion has a new contender. And of course, the Women's Champion has a new contender. But before we get into all of that, it's not just me, Oos. It's a whole team. I'm Jack Farmer, being joined by Justin LaBar and Jimmy Korderas. Jimmy, how was your weekend?
Weekend was good. It's just the drastic change in weather has me confused on what to wear every day. I go from shorts and t-shirt to layers of clothing overnight. It's a crapshoot. Let's put it that
way. Yeah, here in California, here by the beach, it's been drastically changing from 70 to 80 back to 70 again. I don't know what to do with myself.
I don't know how you handle that. That's incredible.
But I had a fun time. I got to do some ring announcing for PCW Ultra here in California at the world famous Rose Bowl. The first time a wrestling show has ever been done there, and I got to do the ring announcing. So that was a really, really fun experience. I believe the show's going to be up on Remix TV. If you want to check it out, it's a free program to watch a lot of cool indie wrestling there. So cool. Check that out. But Justin, please tell me your fantasy football team lost. Mine lost, and I feel like even though we're not in the same league, I want to have a better record than you at the end of the year.
Yes. I did take a loss this weekend. There was nothing I could do, but we'll bounce back. I'm gonna give a good team speech. We're gonna practice with pads on. Second week, we're gonna get the intensity back. I can feel it.
Yeah, I've had Burrow on my team forever, and he finally put some numbers up. But my opponent had his receivers, so it was devastating to me. It was a no-win situation for Jack's Farmers. But
that's chess, not checkers, my friend.
Really?
There's only one quarterback, but there's several receivers.
Man, yeah, I got
there's a lot of chess going on lately.
Yeah, we'll talk about some gamesmanship going down.
We're commercial free right now, correct?
We are commercial free for the first 30 minutes.
For
the first 30 minutes. Then I'm just going to start talking about Manscaped or HelloFresh. I don't know, one of our old go-tos. I think the bosses are going to get mad I shouted out people who aren't paying us money. But, so I say we're being sponsored by NYC Demon Divas Watch-Alongs. That's who our sponsor is. That's who our sponsor is today. But let's talk a little bit about the news. First news, I think, is very interesting. We've got PW Insider Elite's Mike Johnson recently passed along that rumors within WWE have Triple H driving what he described as 99% of WWE's creative direction, with the word being that he has been knighted by TKO to lead the promotion instead of McMahon, a decision which is said to have had a positive effect on backstage morale. Justin, I think we can kind of see this on TV if we're paying close enough attention. DIY showing up again, Bronson Reed getting wins again, Tegan Knox, NXT being featured on big shows. But does this surprise you? Any thoughts on this?
Well, for all the things you just listed and more, it doesn't surprise me to hear that. And I especially love hearing the part of the report that talks about that the backstage morale overall is just on an upswing, which, especially considering that when the official, merger and all happened several weeks ago, of course, it was followed with a lot of layoffs, not on the talent side, but so that's unfortunate. So I'm happy to hear that there's positive morale. I will stress to say that, look at the time of year that it is. I'd have a hard time for as long as Vince is breathing and still associated with the company, especially when we get around to Survivor Series, but more importantly, Rumble and Mania. I'm not saying he's going to, bull rush and tackle Triple H out of his chair and take over in that sense, but he's going to, of course, weigh in on what they're doing because that's their biggest time of year. Right now is, if you want to consider a little bit of a lull period, even though they are going to Saudi Arabia, and that's a very important show, but those shows are paid shows, a little bit different philosophy of how you book those shows, so to speak. But for what it is, I'm happy to hear it again, mostly that everybody's just feeling good there in WWE.
Yeah, Jimmy, hard not to feel good, I imagine, in WWE. It feels like they're breaking records every time they go to a new or go to an old place they've been before. They're breaking numbers when they go there. Ratings seem to be great. They really seem to be firing all cylinders. So it makes sense that Triple H would be a person that they just say, hey, take over this. To play a little bit of a devil's advocate, though, Jimmy, if you're someone who works in WWE, and I don't know if you experienced this at all, but over the past few years, it does feel a little bit like Triple H is in charge. Vince McMahon is in charge. Triple H is in charge. Vince McMahon is in charge. Do you think it might create a little bit of uncertainty if you're someone that works there, or is that just the wrestling business?
For me, it's just the wrestling business. You just go, you try to go with the flow. It's I don't know how to describe it much more differently than that. There's going to be times where you like the direction it's going, or maybe you're thinking to yourself, are we doing the right thing right now as a company? But from what it sounds like right now, people backstage are in a good place. The direction, like you say, like you guys mentioned, the numbers have been good lately. People keep touting the numbers of the Attitude Era and the Ruthless Aggression Era and stuff like that. But this is a different time, and it's a different way the business absorbs money. You know what I mean? It's a money business, and they just signed a new television contract recently, which is sounds very lucrative. Yeah. And so you know what? They seem to be ticking all the right boxes right now. So but back to what you were saying, when creative direction seems to change from one direction to another, and it seems like this person is in charge and that person is in charge, all it does is confuse people. Basically in a nutshell. And in the wrestling business, whoever is dictating the direction, you can voice your opinion and maybe offer suggestions and directions, but at the end of the day, it's ultimately the decision of the man in charge, whoever that happens, or a woman in charge, whoever that happens to be. And you do your best to follow direction.
Yeah, I mean, and I will say, like, I stand by what I said a few minutes ago, that, like, I still think Vince is going to, be in conversations and what have you when you get to the bigger shows. However, I will say that what is different compared to in the past is the fact that it is not just Vince, that there are other people seated at this board table now that have equal share in the company. And so if they know, okay, Paul Levesque is the one who's been in the weeds for these last X amount of months, and they like what they're seeing on all the analytics and data wise, there is a situation now to say, while they all probably respect Vince McMahon and the fact that, he created WWE to this point where they wanted to purchase it and come together with it, I think it does speak to, they will be able to say, well, maybe, let's just go with what Paul's doing here, because obviously he's been hitting the vibes here because the numbers here, so there is, it is a different thing where it's not like Vince just come back in and nobody can overstep, and nobody can can outmaneuver him. He now sits as equal partner to what is it, 7 or 8 other people. So that is a dynamic that we have never ever seen before in the history of WWE and WWF. So that's something that I think that is worthwhile to see if we hear anything about how that plays out, especially when they get into their money time in a few months here.
I always say never count out Vince McMahon. I always, when I see these reports, I always think I've loved everything Triple H has done when he's running creative, but Vince McMahon is Vince McMahon. Never assume he's if he wants to get involved in something, Vince McMahon's going to get involved in something. But I wouldn't. I see some people kind of saying, "Well, I guess Vince McMahon's gone." I'm sure Vince McMahon, like Justin, like you said, if he wants to poke his nose back into the weeds, Vince McMahon's going to be back in the weeds.
No, absolutely. And you got two individuals there with two different auras about them. The way they're the people that work for them present them. Like people look at Triple H as very approachable. How's it going, Hunter, and blah, blah, blah. And everybody sees Mr. McMahon, pretty much. And he's got that, that, like I said, that aura about him where it's like, it's almost intimidating to a certain degree to a lot of younger talent.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. I can imagine Vince McMahon being an intimidating person to talk to. But let's, as we move on, we got I want to talk a bit about something that was a bit of news throughout the past week. And even today, whether you were watching the show or whether you were on social media, you guys may not have heard this. Maybe, I don't know. Tomorrow, they got this little show called NXT happening, and it looks like it's going to be a pretty big show. Move over, Crown Jewel. I think we got a new super pumped up show, and it's called NXT. They have announced 1 million people for this show tomorrow. Cody Rhodes, Asuka. We've got, I'm sure Becky Lynch will be there, which wasn't even announced with everyone else, but John Cena, Paul Heyman, and now 30 minutes commercial free. Justin, also, as you mentioned before we went on the air, AEW, though, they're not backing down. They're going to be across the way doing Dynamite. They're going to have 30 minutes free. They're going to have an overrun. They're going to have a buy-in. This is what I truly missed about the Monday Night Wars. This is them doing whatever they can to put on the best show possible. This is win-win for everybody.
Oh, it absolutely is. It's win-win for everybody. And it's kind of funny. It's like this absurd game of poker right now of who's just, it's at the point where it feels like both sides have ran out of chips. Now somebody's pulling off the watch. My grandmother gave me this watch. I'm trying to watch it. And somebody else is, I got this car here for this car key. They're doing whatever they can to keep throwing it in, to keep trying to up the ante, to spice up this pot. And I don't blame AEW for doing any of the things they're doing in terms of trying to compete with the non-commercials, because that is a big deal. So trying to do no commercials, having the overrun, that's also a big deal. I don't know how much the buy-in thing's going to do, because I think at that point you're starting to – I think the only people that are seeing the buy-in for the stuff online and an ROH title, I think, again, you're going back to the hardcore fan that you probably already are going to have, and that's not the name of the game here. The name of the game here is you got to grab new fans. You got to fight and scratch for eyeballs here that are going to be forced, or going to be wanting to look over here. AEW definitely has the disadvantage because Tuesday is NXT's night. So this is the disadvantage for AEW, is that they're having to try to retrain their audience. Hey, tune in on this different night. And no, oh, by the way, don't look at John Cena, don't look at Paul Heyman, don't look at all these things over there. And oh, by the way, you didn't even mention this one, Jack, and we don't know, this is WWE being cryptic. At the end of that damn promo video, you hear a gong from a certain dead man. Mm-hmm. I don't think that was put in there as an accident. No. There was an audio error tonight for Sami Zayn's entrance music, but I don't think they're going to accidentally leave the Undertaker's gong in an NXT promo. So, but yeah, we all are going to win out of this.
It's I think in general, I'm not a ratings guy, but whenever stuff like this happens, I always find it interesting. I don't think it means anything. I'm not going to change my opinion on anything based on ratings, but I always do find it interesting. Jimmy, if I was taking bets, if I was in Vegas right now, I would say, looking at this situation, NXT is probably going to win the ratings. That said, if NXT doesn't win the ratings with everything they've thrown at it, and AEW being on an off night, they have to win the ratings. I feel like if AEW loses, we'll say it wasn't their usual night. NXT stacked the deck, whatever. If for whatever reason, and I don't personally think it's going to happen, but if AEW wins, I mean, this has to be a massive blow to WWE. Have they kind of stuck their neck out a little bit?
I don't believe so, because, like you said, they brought the established stars back on their established night, and all they've done is added to the product. Yes, people are going to complain and say, "Well, NXT is supposed to be the developmental brand, and bringing these guys in is they brought them in because they're in a Tuesday Night War for at least this week, anyways." So if AEW does manage to pull off a bigger number than NXT, WWE, I honestly, and I don't mean it this way to sound like a WWE homer, I will be surprised for the reasons that Justin stated as well, too, because NXT's night is Tuesday night and AEW's night is usually a Wednesday night. So retraining your audience, so to speak. So having names like John Cena and Paul Heyman and Cody Rhodes with a major announcement, and Asuka and probably Becky Lynch, like you said, and
Judgment Day probably too.
Yeah, and the big tease with the dead man. There's just a lot going on. So if again, not to sound like the homer guy, but if AEW were to pull off a bigger number than NXT tomorrow, I would be surprised.
Well, and Jimmy, it's not even a homer thing, but I'll say this: I don't know if I get the numbers. I don't know if I'll get it pulled up fast enough. But this was earlier today. WrestleNomics and Brandon Thurston, who are really good at breaking down and keeping track of TV ratings, keeping track of tickets and everything. Their numbers well versed in numbers. Yeah. they were showing the seating chart and showing the data right now going into Dynamite tomorrow. I think it's in Independence, Missouri, and like it's not trending in the right direction based upon they've ran that market before, and I guess like I saw a lot of people in a thread off of that talking about how a bad tendency that AEW's been having recently with their events is people the loyalists will buy tickets when they first go on sale at this price, is high price, and then AEW starts lowering the ticket price as they get closer to the day of because they need to get butts and seats, and that's creating resentment to those fans. They're like, "Hey, I just paid $90 for this seat that's now on sale for $24. I would have waited. I would have saved that money, and I would have just put that money towards merch or whatever else." So that's an easy way to turn away somebody who's like, I'm not going to buy a ticket next time, or at least I'm not buying a ticket early on because I don't want to get screwed. So my point being, I think NXT is absolutely going to win on TV because if AEW's not even moving tickets in a building that's set up for 3,000 or 4,000 people, they're not even moving tickets real well for that, for what's Edge's first match. If they're not even moving the live audience there, I don't think that bodes well for getting. I don't think it's going to be the worst rated Dynamite ever, but I don't see how they beat NXT on NXT normal night with all that NXT is stacking the deck on.
Well, and it's, regardless of how you feel about individual wrestlers, it's just spicier and more interesting when you have these people who aren't ever on NXT going to NXT. That's what makes invasions interesting or new wrestling signings interesting and things like that. It's just more interesting because you never see it. So you want to tune in and see what is the big announcement. What is all this? Is the Undertaker going to be there and all these other things? And so it's not even whether or not you're a fan of one or the other. I just think, like I said, a different date, AEW probably would have had lower ratings anyways because it's a different day. But also the way they're pumping out all this stuff for NXT, it'll be a very tough day at the office for AEW. And Justin, I wanted to ask you this. If AEW, because if AEW wanted to like pull a fast one and try to like bring someone who could help like combat these big names on NXT, is there anyone even available besides maybe a Mercedes that is going to have that kind of power to bring someone? Because like that's an available, realistic free agent. Obviously, The Rock isn't going to be on AEW tomorrow. But like, what other available wrestlers or people are there that if they wanted to just like throw money at somebody to try to get them to show up, is there even someone out there that could combat these other people who are going to be on NXT?
No. Well, first off, no. There's nobody realistic. Obviously, Punk's not going back to AEW right now. Mercedes Moné, she might grab a little bit of interest, but here's the thing: they would have had to done it by now. You can't. It's hard to make money ahead of time off of what is not advertised. You're advertising, and you don't want to steal a spotlight away. You're advertising for Edge's first match. Is Edge versus Luchasaurus the biggest thing you can drum up? I get from a story perspective why it's Luchasaurus, but is that the biggest, sexiest thing you can drum up? No, but that's the direction you decided to go in, and that's supposed to be something to hold your head. But it's so no, there's nobody. Mercedes Moné, even if you would advertise her ahead of time, it's a little whatever. But AEW's strong point is not their women, to be quite frankly. So I don't think that's even necessarily. There's nobody else that's realistically going to be at this moment in time signed over to AEW to move the needle like that. I mean, Edge, again, somebody who we once thought would be a WWE lifer. We've dissected it enough on these podcasts of, they're splitting, they're going their separate ways amicably. So that's kind of a surprise just to know that he's there. But I mean, I guess the only other person I can even think of, and again, you advertise this kind of thing, is like, there's been a lot of speculation about what's Goldberg's situation, that he's done. He's not currently under any contract with WWE. So like, I mean, he would be a name. But again, you advertise that kind of thing. That's the kind of thing you advertise to sell out, one of the bigger shows that AEW tries to do, whether it's Grand Slam or Full Gear or whatever. So you advertise those things. You don't have Goldberg make a surprise appearance in Independence, Missouri on a Tuesday night. Just doesn't quite work that way.
Yeah, it's Luchasaurus. Or I guess Luchasaurus is facing Edge. I'm trying to think of who would be the poor person that just gets speared in half by Goldberg coming out. I will say this is my prediction. This is my probably not going to happen, but in Jack's crazy mind, I think Cody Rhodes is going to come out. I don't know what his specific announcement's going to be, but I think he's going to have a run-in with The Undertaker, and we're at WrestleMania, maybe Crown Jewel, but maybe WrestleMania. the story that is finished isn't Cody Rhodes. It's Cody Rhodes finishing the Undertaker's story in front of a live crowd with a final match while Roman Reigns takes on The Rock. I think that is what they're going to give Cody instead of beating Roman Reigns at WrestleMania. I think that's where this is going to start. That's my prediction. We'll see if it happens.
Interesting.
Let's chat about this show, this WWE Monday Night Raw. By the way, if you're with us live, if you're a lurker, thanks for hanging out. Make sure to just say hello if you'd like. Or if you're in the chat live, Dylan, Scott, Baby Ice, MDB999, Malik Black, Azel, Montez, Scott. We got a lot of folks in here. David Beer and Baby Ice and Leonard Jones and Monge and Brian. I saw Adam Staples back there. Said he's been MIA for a while, but we still appreciate you coming back. But Dylan Matthews as well. Thank you guys so much. And if you're not live, like, comment, share, subscribe later, and leave us a 5-star review. Why don't you? It's always appreciated. We're going to start the show with a couple of super chats. First, Ryan Ramirez saying Michael Cole was savage on Cody tonight. Cole's always great, man. Just today, we'll probably talk about it, but his in-ring interviews are even great. Like, that guy is so good at everything. Shelbowski saying, did you know Bronson Reed was big? Enough already. We'll talk about that. And then Jake saying, just want to send love to everyone in Israel with the super chat. Thank you, all three of you, for the super chats. Let's talk about the show. First, we kick things off with Seth Rollins. He says that Knock pushed him to his limit, but he's just getting started. Drew McIntyre comes out and says, I want a match, but at Crown Jewel, not tonight. And so they part as friends. But Priest attacks Seth Rollins and calls for the briefcase, but McIntyre stops Dom in his tracks. Later, Seth is upset about Drew leaving him hanging, but Drew says that he saw what happened with the bloodline. He's not going to let things like that happen again with the Judgment Day. And Seth says, Judgment Day can't take the title, and neither can you, Drew. Jimmy, how did you feel about this opening segment and setting up the next world title contender?
I thought it was very interesting. And the interesting thing about it is Drew a heel? Is Drew a babyface? Because obviously Seth Rollins is a huge babyface right now. And, people keep talking about the business is changing. It's not so much clear, the heel and babyface roles, but at the same time, people want someone to cheer and people want someone to boo at the end of the day. And this one's a tough one. And they gave you kind of hints that maybe Drew is kind of leaning towards the heel side. But I think this is a nice little transition after the Fastlane match with Shinsuke. Who is going to be next? Like we said, Damian Priest does have the Money in the Bank briefcase, so that keeps him in the picture almost until that time limit expires, or whatever the case may be. But I thought it was interesting that even Seth kind of called him out. He says, "You stopped the Money in the Bank, but you saw him attack me from behind, and you said you want me as close to 100% as possible, but you let him beat me down and all that sort of stuff." So it's kind of leaving questions in people's minds, and Drew just kind of fluffed it off, it felt like.
Justin, I feel like it makes sense Drew is the next contender. I want to know your thoughts on Damian Priest appearing to want to cash in at the start of the show tonight, as opposed to at Fastlane. Now, obviously, this was just a device to get them from point A to point B, but if we're reading between the lines, or maybe digging into it too much, did it kind of make, like, was there a party that's like, well, why cash in now and not at Fastlane?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I feel bad because I feel like I'm ringing this death bell to Seth Rollins' title reign. I thought that at Payback here in Pittsburgh we could see him lose the title or get cashed in on. I felt the same thing this past Saturday for Fastlane, and then I still feel it now. But it's between Priest lurking there with the briefcase. And then they just won't let go Rollins and his health and his back. It just feels like they are trying to make sure that they give us every piece of the story, so that way once Seth does lose and he presumably probably goes away for a little bit, that it doesn't that he goes away looking strong and he was a fighting champion and He battled. It was just way too much for him to overcome. The deck just got stacked against him. That's what it feels like. It feels like we are just impending on him losing the title and going away. But yeah, to a logic, it's like the guy just went through a last man standing match. Well, why didn't you try it 2 nights ago? But
yeah, and the other thing too, sorry to cut you off, Justin, is Seth comes out for this promo, doesn't look any worse for wear, especially after such a brutal war that he went through with Shinsuke. At least shows some signs of going through this battle.
Yeah, I did kind of feel that too as he was walking out and kind of like just still dancing around. Like for someone with a broken back who just got beaten to a pulp a couple days ago, you sure are dancing around a lot, having a good time.
Barely making it to his feet before the count of 10 and that sort of thing. It just looked like, oh, I'm okay now.
Yeah, I would have liked to have seen him look a little more worse for wear, but I'm a big Seth Rollins fan, so I let him get away with it. But yeah, we'll definitely see how that goes. We follow that up with Kofi Kingston versus Ivar in a Viking Rules match, and this one was fun. It was chaotic with Kofi using Ivar's beard, Valhalla jumping around like a crazy cat, and Ivar hitting a moonsault for a win over a former world champion in singles competition. Jimmy, one, have you ever refereed a Viking Rules match? And two, Ivar has just, who's risen their stock more than Ivar in the past 3 weeks?
To the second part of your question, you're right. Nobody has. But as far as the Viking Rules match, I do not believe I've ever officiated one of those. I've done everything from a gravy bowl match to to some other crazy matches, but I do not believe Viking Rules matches on that list. But you're absolutely right about Ivar, man. He's really upped his stock, and he's looked so good the last few weeks that man, if there is a singles run for him in the future, there is something there. That's for sure.
Justin, my favorite part about this, I love Michael Cole. I think he's truly one of the all-time greats. Hard to compare him to the people I heard as a child, though, who are like in my heart. But as far as just technically, I think he's amazing. But he had a line that made me giggle a little bit where he's like, the Viking Rules match is named after the Viking Raiders. And I thought, you don't say, Michael Cole.
And it's all the more reason why Ivar needs to win this match. And he did win this match. You can't be a Viking and lose your own Viking Rules match, No, and obviously shout out to Kofi. Kofi's just, what a pro Kofi is. I felt for him that moonsault. Ivar landed a little more on Kofi's head than you would like. You'd like to be a little more flush on the midsection. But no, the number one thing I liked about this overall, besides Ivar winning as he should, was Valhalla resurfacing. She had been gone the last week or two, and she is in real life married to Eric, the other Viking Raider who was out legitimately injured. So I'm glad, but she's not injured. So I was glad that she's back out there because, she is part of the presentation. She is an accessory that adds to the presentation, adds to the little bit of mystique, a little bit of darkness to this gimmick that obviously they're continuing to push with Ivar. They're giving them TV time. So I'm glad they're keeping her out there too, because I think that's only going to help, and that only gives you options when you have a manager, valet, whatever you want to classify her as. But it gives you options creatively, both from promos and in the match, as we saw tonight, that she can be a presence and she can cause some distraction and some problems.
I think too, she just adds a little bit more interest to them. Like her part in the match, I thought was great. And I thought it was really clever the way they had Woods get rid of her without doing anything physical to her. It also, it felt like what would really happen in this situation. And there's no one else. Like I made the joke about moving around like a cat, but like it's different. It stands out. No one else is doing that. So it instantly makes her different than everybody else. So I think she's a great part of this. I do wonder what the plan is with Ivar. You got to imagine, Jimmy, that if he's beating a former world champion, that this isn't just a stopgap for a little bit. Like they got to have something in mind for this guy.
Well, it's interesting because we're going to get to later who the number one contender for Gunther's Intercontinental Championship. Is that a path they can go down the road, depending on the injury to Eric and how long he's going to be out? But like we said, we have something here with Ibar in a singles capacity. We don't hear him talk much, and having maybe someone as his mouthpiece, would work in this case, because, you need the entire presentation, so to speak.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see where they go, but he has just been a delight. I think he's been great, and I am happy for the guy. I hope we get to see more of him and more continued success. We had Raquel Rodriguez versus Nia Jax in what was, if the match felt very similar, and Justin, I bet I'd like to think you thought the same thing, very similar to what a Hogan versus Andre kind of match would have felt like in many ways. But the match is thrown out when Rhea comes out and takes out Nia Jax and Raquel, only for Shayna Baszler to come out and take out Rhea Ripley. Afterwards, Baszler says that it doesn't matter who it is. If she's in the ring, she's the baddest. Then, in a manner similar to Brock endorsing Cody and Cena endorsing LA Knight, Akira Tozawa, in his own way, endorsed Shayna Baszler. And of course, later, Indy Hartwell and Candice LeRae get interrupted by Rhea Ripley, who wants Shayna Baszler next week. Justin, this was a lot of stuff happening in the women's division. And I said on Twitter, but I want to reiterate it here. Raquel Rodriguez, Nia Jax, Shayna Baszler, Rhea Ripley. That is a murderer's row of a top of a division, if I ever saw one.
Well, yeah, and to steal one of Jimmy's finishers, everybody got over. Everybody got over without having to go. Right now you look at those four. I mean, Raquel still looks strong, and she obviously physically she's still one of the stronger, more imposing females. Nia's still same thing, continuing her return and her dominance. Rhea is Rhea, and she wants control of her division. Nobody's doubting mommy. But then even Shayna Baszler, who from a physical stature is the smallest of all of them, but nobody's counting her out. Everybody respects that Shayna Baszler is a tough competitor. So all four are a great situation. And then, when you look at just the women's division tonight as a whole, from all of Monday Night Raw, some of which we'll still get to, this might have been one of the most productive episodes of Raw that I can recall, where it was like, well, we got several stories. Granted, Becky's holding the NXT title, but it's still being, defended on Raw. So there was a lot being accomplished in terms of stories and in terms of characters mattering. It was not just it's the time for the one women's segment. So they really did a lot. I guess, again, maybe going back to who's in charge of creative right now in the weeds week to week, I guess, if we go back to that.
Yeah, like you mentioned, we'll talk about all the other. There's so many other talented people in this division, and that weren't in this segment. But this segment alone, you could build around a massive women's division. Jimmy, I want to ask you about something, because you've been around so many of these wrestlers in the past, and something that stood out to me is if you're talking about Rhea Ripley as a wrestler, you would say she is a big powerhouse wrestler. She's bigger than a lot of the other women's wrestlers. She looks stronger. It looks like she could throw around people. Shayna Baszler is tough, obviously, but you wouldn't really describe in the same way. But when they're standing nose to nose, Baszler's like an inch shorter. Like, she's not that much smaller. And it makes me think of like Shelton Benjamin and Bobby Lashley. Like, Shelton's not that much smaller than Bobby Lashley, but Bobby Lashley is a powerhouse. Why is it we think some people look so much bigger than than everyone else, when sometimes they're not necessarily that much bigger than someone else, if that makes sense?
Trying to explain it, it's the way the muscles are cut, so to speak. Like you talk about Shelton Benjamin. Shelton Benjamin is lean, right, and he's really, really powerful. Like you said, he's got a good build. But you look at a guy like Bobby Lashley. Bobby's body leans more towards like someone you would picture as a bodybuilder. But this guy, Bobby, has obviously a lot more agility and mobility than your average just basic bodybuilding weightlifter kind of guy. But I think that's the difference. It's the way the muscles are toned and cut and looking more like I said, like a bodybuilder, as opposed to I guess in some people's mind that denounces more strength, or that registers as more strength to them, whereas it doesn't necessarily. Look at a guy like Mark Henry, strongest man in the world. He didn't look like Bobby Lashley, but he got out lift Bobby Lashley. So
Yeah.
I think it's all in the way, appearances. Let's put it that way.
Because it also takes me back to when Angelo Dawkins was standing next to Bobby Lashley, and Bobby Lashley was like looking up to Dawkins. I was like, geez, I always knew Dawkins was big, but I didn't know he was that big. How come I don't think of Dawkins as a big powerhouse? Now, obviously, he's not built like Bobby Lashley. I mean, who is? But, I don't know. It's just, it was interesting to me how your perspective of people can change so much based off of the smallest of details in a pro wrestling ring.
It's always like they say in the wrestling business, if it's the little things that matter.
Jesus. Yeah. But this is I was actually very excited to Justin's point with this segment, because I think Shayna Baszler, anyone who saw her in NXT knows that she can be an absolute killer in a division. So I am glad to see that she's getting the time now. And of course, Raquel, I loved all the, can she pick up Nia Jax? Oh, not yet. And that's what felt very Hulk Hogan to me, is they like, can she power up the immovable object,
Exactly. And the way she sold in that match was really good.
Mm-hmm.
Raquel really sold well for Nia in that particular situation.
Yep. So all good stuff happening there. We got an interview segment in the ring. Michael Cole gets Cody Rhodes and Jey Uso into the ring. And Michael Cole showed not only can he ring announce and do commentary and do interviews live in the ring. Geez, Michael Cole, leave a job for the rest of us. But he asks Cody if he's satisfied being a tag team champion. Cody ducks the question. Then Cole pushes and says, "You got close, just like your dad." And before Cody can respond, Sami Zayn and KO come out. How can they not be heels when they don't let us hear the answer to this question? But they say the story is the tag team titles. And Sami says he's happy for them, but he wants a match. KO says he's not happy, but he wants a match also. And Cody says, let's do it tonight. Justin, what I loved about this segment is all the talk about the world title. And Sami's like, nah, that's not what's important. This is important. And I think that is the most important thing in pro wrestling.
Yeah, I mean, what a segment it was. They created a main event for tonight, for tonight's episode. But like you said, I mean, Michael Cole basically asked everything that we're all thinking, which is like, where is this right now in the booking for Cody Rhodes? Like, is this what is this? Where is he? Because certainly when Cody Rhodes came back, and nowhere in the point of him coming back have we thought of Cody Rhodes being part of a tag team, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, that's what he was involved in his very, very early days, and involved in Legacy as a trio. I mean, so like, him as a tag team, no, he's here to win the world title. So this certainly is a swerve in the booking. And so I think good on them to kind of just acknowledge it. And yeah, I mean, obviously he managed to duck the question, not give an answer. Maybe, I don't know what his announcement is tomorrow. I mean, does it have anything to do with his status or with his goals? We'll tune in to find out. But yeah, I thought this entire segment was really well done. There was a lot of things to come away with. And yeah, Michael Cole, I think Michael Cole for the longest time got a lot of unnecessary hate because he was the guy who, and not even by his choice, basically replaced Jim Ross. Mm-hmm. When they started mixing up the combinations there early in the 2000s with the brand split and this and that, and breaking up JR and King, that's something no fan wanted to have happen. But Michael Cole, I think he's gotten past that. I think his GOAT status is, his stamina is finally there, and especially again, not to make this about Triple H, but when there was a change of creative, Michael Cole's style instantly got the change. Michael Cole, aside from being able to run the shows as well as he does, which is a talent, because WWE has so much going on in there. He's basically the host of the show. They don't use that term, but he's the host. He also got to call the matches more authentically. He called more moves. He gave acknowledgement to history of the title belts, and whereas Vince was kind of always more, we don't need to call out history. We don't need people thinking about the old. We don't want to appear old or outdated. We need to talk about now and current and moving forward. Triple H has seemed to allow Michael Cole to lean into let's verbally pay tribute to our history and our lineage. And so Michael Cole he feels like he's being the best version of himself. He's tremendous.
Yeah, Cole is incredible. Jimmy, any takeaways from this segment?
No, I like the fact that, a lot of people are saying, wait a minute, you got two single superstars like main event Jey Uso and Cody Rhodes, Cody Rhodes has a different path. He should be going down this path, that path. But to have them having that much interest in the tag team titles elevates those tag team championships. Mm-hmm. It makes them feel more important, kind of like what they're doing with the Intercontinental Championship in a different way. But them wanting to be champions, tag team champions, makes the titles feel that much more important. And you put it on two guys like that. I know they have their own separate entrances, and some people could say, well, does that kind of not make them? It makes them less of a team. Yes and no. You can make the argument that they should have one entrance theme, but I kind of like the fact that these are two big stars that could be two big, huge single stars, putting enough emphasis in the tag team division and wanting to elevate that. And they are elevating that division by being tag team champions and having these other teams want to come out and challenge them now. Yeah,
the tag team titles have been incredible since like the Usos got them, obviously, and had a record-setting reign, and then KO and Sam. They've really elevated those tag team titles. I do hate it when they come out separately, but both those guys have banger songs, so I'm okay with it.
If you get the pop from the crowd for the songs, my thing is when you're being a tag team, to not seem like you're being two random people put together, coordinate your colors. It drives me nuts when I see a tag team and it's one thing. Some guys like to wear pants, some guys like to wear a short tie. Guys have their preference of what they like in terms of their attire, and usually it should be influenced by what displays your look the best, what displays your body or your positive assets. So I understand not necessarily wearing the same uniform, but at least coordinate your damn colors so you feel like some semblance of a team and not just random wrestler A paired with wrestler B. And then I think tonight they both had like some blue on, so we'll go with the blue.
Kind of like Sammy and KO wear the shirts with the tape like design. So we move on to Shinsuke Nakamura. Byron's trying to get some answers from him, but Ricochet shows up and throws hands. So before the Chad Gable Ricochet Bronson Reed match, Nakamura returns the favor. Ricochet still able to have the match, and it's a fast and fun one with Bronson Reed getting the win. And we get Reed versus Gunther next week. We're also going to get Ricochet versus Shinsuke in a Falls Count Anywhere match next week. Jimmy, were you surprised by this? Because it felt like this was Gable's match to win.
I am a little bit surprised by this for two reasons. Yes, one was I thought this was a perfect opportunity to get another match with Chad Gable and Gunther because those guys just have a chemistry together. But, again, I said it earlier, and I know it sounds repetitive, but, Bronson Reed is a heel. Gunther is a heel. Them having this match kind of, the crowd, we saw at times when you do have not identified heels and baby faces, the crowds kind of get quiet because they're kind of deciding on who they want to back and who they want to possibly boo, maybe boo both. It doesn't matter. I'm going to wait and see where this goes. But at the same time, it's not something I'm only looking forward to it for the wrong reasons. In my opinion, I'm not looking forward to it going, oh, these guys are going to have a banger match. I'm looking forward to it to see how they handle the situation with two heels going at it for the IC championship. And that's not the way I should be thinking. I should be thinking, hey, I want to see so-and-so win. I want to see so-and-so win or whatever.
But at the same time, Justin, these guys are going to beat the hell out of each other next week.
Well, they are. And I think that's what the WWE booking is hanging their hats on with this, is that it's not gonna be the traditional good guy versus bad guy, and this guy's getting heat and cheating. I think they are just banking on the crowd being entertained by this, by just oohs and ahs of just two guys that are just gonna hit really hard with each other. Which it's a buffet. You want to have a little something for everybody. I'm not so much offended by that, maybe because I am sadistically kind of looking forward to seeing the two beat the hell out of each other, but I am a little bit kind of. There's an investment right now in big Bronson Reed. Marketing, pal, he's big. There's obviously an investment in him, noting the way he's performed, noting the kind of little win streak he's on. It makes me surprised that he's getting that title match now, because I don't see him being the one that dethrones Gunther. So again, back to Jimmy's phrase, it's not to say that he could not still get over without going over in the match. But it just surprises me. I wouldn't expect you'd put him in this match right now on the assumption he's going to lose. That's the surprising part to me.
So, Jimmy, I got to bring this up because people have been mentioning it on Twitter. NYC Demon Diva is saying it here in the chat. Shinsuke hit a GTS. And also there have been people saying Michael Cole used a word that CM Punk used it in Ring of Honor 20 years ago. And Corey Graves said something about something that was similar to a CM Punk thing. Are they teasing CM Punk, or is this just coincidences and we're looking for meaning to them?
Very interesting choice of words tonight, especially when it comes to, I know there's a lot of talk about it. There's a lot of speculation about it. Let's leave it at that. You know what I'm saying? If it is true, it's going to be interesting because as someone who knows that and has been there to see sometimes some of the backstage goings on when CM Punk is around, it's going to be interesting to see how different it would be this time if he were to come back.
Let's also not forget CM Punk has a tattoo of the Pepsi logo. I saw one of the commentators drinking a Pepsi at the commentary table. Confirms it all.
Confirmed.
That's it.
Confirmed. Breaking news.
Written in stone.
Fightful. Breaking news. It's happening.
Look, it may very well happen. Survivor Series in Chicago. It may very well happen. I'm not saying that it's not. But at the same point, I can't help but sit here and think we started this podcast off talking about one of the lead news stories across the wrestling world today, backstage wise. Of if you actually read the original report from PW Insider, in addition to the Triple H is the one in charge and in the weeds, blah blah blah, it goes on to say how this WWE sources, WWE executive says morale is high, everybody's feeling good, isn't it? And I'm just like, do we need to rock the boat?
Yeah.
Do we need to rock the boat?
Right.
Yeah. I keep saying to myself, I'll believe it when I see it. And I've seen a lot of things that I've said, I'll believe it when I see it too over the past couple of years. So maybe it will happen, but I don't know. To me, it feels like a combination of people looking into things more than they should. And maybe some of the folks at WWE just having a little fun because they know that this is what's getting talked about.
You never know. You never know.
Problem is if they might be. The problem is if you do that though, it's gonna be one of those things where we're gonna get to Chicago Survivor Series, and you don't want the crowd showing up there expecting to see him, even though when there hasn't been a mention of him, and then when they don't see him, then they're mad and feel like they got gypped. It's like no, I mean, all I can say, WWE, if you are not bringing CM Punk in, do not have Survivor Series have a match where there's a mystery partner or a mystery opponent, or if you do that and then you send out Akira Tozawa, Jack Farmer is going to be the only person happy in this one.
I'll be fist pumping so hard. Yeah.
You sold me, Justin. You sold me. That's tremendous.
Justin, I have the hardest question of the night for you based on this match. I need your answer here. What is more devastating, the Bronson Reed tsunami or the Ivar moonsault?
Ooh. I'm gonna say the Ivar moonsault because at least with the splash, that the tsunami splash, one, it's a lot easier because you're facing your opponent to get your ideal landing spot, and they can, and you can. There's some tricks of the trade that can be done to kind of mitigate to make it look good, but still mitigate impact. That moonsault's a bit of a blind missile. So that's a lot of man spinning in a direction that's pretty lethal looking.
Yeah,
I'm telling you, if you've never been to a live show and you've only seen it on TV, you may not understand. But whenever you've seen a wrestler actually jump on someone from the top rope, and then you think about someone the size of Ivar, having to lay there, just knowing that's coming your way, and he's jumping backwards. Oh my God, I'd be terrified. But we move on. We get to the Judgment Day's locker room, and Damian Priest is in the process of murdering JD McDonough when Finn and Rhea show up. They say they got a rematch for the tag titles later next week, but for now, JD has to prove himself by taking care of Drew McIntyre, and I bet JD wishes Priest just killed him. Instead, we get Drew McIntyre versus JD McDonough. Pretty much a squash, but JD does a good job of looking smart, scared, conniving, crafty, all that good stuff. But it it was not enough to get him in the Judgment Day. In the locker room, Priest isn't impressed, but Ripley says don't sweat it. Jimmy, where are you at with old JD McDonough and the Judgment Day?
Just having him there, putting a cog in the wheel. No, how does that say?
Just yeah, I get what you're saying, but it's not a cog. It's something. Wrench in the monkey grease or something. Something
along those lines.
Kink in the hose. Kink in the hose.
There you go. Yeah, him creating a little disturbance within the Judgment Day is fine with me. If he becomes a part of Judgment Day, I think the group itself loses something. I think right now having this little dissension going on between Priest and Balor because of JD McDonough, who's instigating a lot of it, is okay for now, but it's got to come to an end sooner rather than later. It's been going on for a little while now.
Yeah. Justin, what were your thoughts on JD McDonough tonight? Obviously, the match was about making Drew look unstoppable, but do you think JD did himself any favors?
I mean, I thought he played his part well. I mean, I thought the way that he was, really pretty ballsy, and then the slaps that he was trying to give Drew and kind of anger, he was basically just angering Drew. He wasn't even hurting him; was just making him mad. I thought the way he played, I thought it was all well done. He played his part the way that he was supposed to, but overall. And I hate to be size this and this and that, but I mean, he's not. It's like why would Judgment Day want you other than if they were just gonna like kind of goat you in and let you be their lackey that's always sent to the front line. I think about Look, Hogan was the third man. Giant was 4. We had Fake Sting at 5. We had 6 at 6, and then after 6. They started getting Vincent, and the NWO just started a whole second, third line tier, and it didn't become cool anymore to be in the part of the NWO. It just became all it became in history was a statement that you politically had the right friends and the right high places in the company. Right. And so I feel that if we start having JD McDonough and this and that, it's just going to start to water down the cool and dangerous factor that is of the Judgment Day. So,
yeah, I definitely feel like something needs to happen here with those guys, whether they kick him out or not. We got to move on. I think one way or the other. And yeah, I don't know. I like JD McDonough. I just don't know if the group feels any different with him. I'm not like, oh, now, as opposed to talking about the NWO adding the Big Show or the Giant at the time. Oh, now they've got a big monster on their team. Okay, cool, or whatever. But I don't know if JD McDonough goes, oh, now we've got a different spin on this group. It's just like, oh, there's another Judgment Day member.
Yeah.
DIY, they have a sit-down interview to explain to people who they are and what they want, but Imperium isn't interested, and they beat the poop out of him right in front of Wade Barrett, who does not get involved. Mm-hmm. Later, we get a Ludwig Kaiser video that is just absolute perfection. Justin, I love that they had DIY basically explain to everyone who doesn't know who DIY is, who DIY is.
Yeah, catch the audience up. Quick context. And look, I mean, it's not. It doesn't look great for them. They get reunited and they get jumped and attacked backstage. But it sets up some. Again, it follows through with the heat. It sets up a program here between them and the guys from Imperium, and that's only going to enrich this tag division, which. Again, tag division and tag titles are the main event tonight. So overall, I was fine with what they were trying to do here, and I still can't. It's not like Barrett's not the first wrestler to turn commentator, obviously in this crazy business. But I just thought this so funny to me about Barrett, who legit is a 6'5" dude and a tough. He can handle his own. It's something funny about me just watching him and just get up and scurrying away from this fight. Like part of me at least would say, okay, I'm not expecting him to take sides or start putting the boots of somebody. But part of me thinks it would be very on brand if he's sitting there in his chair and all of a sudden here comes Imperium attacking DIY. At least sit there and pour yourself a drink and go, I'm afraid I've got some bad news. I feel like he can at least sit there and just watch this happen. He don't got to scurry off.
He doesn't want to get his suit messed up, man.
Yeah,
and it's a nice suit. He wears the same suits as I wear. He and I were both walking in the David Allen Fashion Show 6 years ago. I'm walking again this weekend, by the way. Braun Strowman's in it. Okay. Wardlow's in it. Could be all looking good in suits. Cheap plug. He didn't want to get a suit messed up. I understand, but still, he's Bad News Barrett. He's Bare Knuckle Barrett. He doesn't need to scurry away from Ludwig Kaiser and Giovanni Vinci.
Because it's also like, it's not just like he's a former wrestler. He's in great shape and he's huge. It's like he could probably handle all those guys,
right?
Yeah.
I mean, he's a foot taller than Gargano or Ciampa. I mean, he's running around.
That is hilarious. I didn't even think about that, but yeah, that is absolutely hilarious. Jimmy, I gotta talk to you about this Ludwig Kaiser video. I know I'm not supposed to like the guy, but I absolutely loved this video. I think I'm going to love Ludwig Kaiser once it seems like he's about to break off on his own.
That's the problem. Maybe that was the intention. Maybe it's not the problem. Maybe that was the intention, to make him likable for when he does leave the group, so that people could get invested in him. Because that's the whole thing. You want people to get invested in him. And you talked about JD McDonough joining, Judgment Day, and us not thinking that he adds very much to it. When you see a video like this for Ludwig Kaiser, now you're saying to yourself, you know what? Hey, maybe there's something there. Maybe we got something. Let's pay attention to this dude. And that's how you get people invested.
Kaiser looks like you asked AI to create a James Bond villain. He will never, I don't think he'll ever be a good guy. He just looks like someone you're supposed to hate.
But he's too cool a bad guy.
He is so cool. He is so cool.
Well, with that video, anyways.
He could be. Look, I always say this: if the demonic monster who was thought to be burned in a funeral home and left for dead reemerges and eventually becomes a lovable babyface, if Kane can be a babyface, anybody can be a babyface. I could see Ludwig Kaiser, because he's almost a little bit comical, to the point of his strut, and his arrogance is almost comical. And it's okay that it's comical because he backs it up in the ring. The moment that he starts, being in a conga line for the 24/7 title revitalized, that's a problem. But he's comical still with credibility, that I could actually see one day him being a babyface, even to the point where he's a babyface that tries to go toe to toe with Gunther. One day it could be a babyface, but yeah, right now he is just the perfect. He's a perfect heel, and I love the vignettes. I thought that was a great title. I love he's like a piece of art, and then the boyfriend and girlfriend, and then he flips it. And he just takes a picture with the woman. It's just so stupid,
It's so good, but you're right, Justin. As you were saying this, I'm thinking of Chad Gable and the Shoosh, and how everyone hated it for a while, and then it became the greatest thing ever when he tells someone to shoosh or thank you or whatever.
The way that Kaiser says "Ring General" and months ago Corey Graves was doing imitations of him on commentary, and it was so spot on, but it's funny. I mean, it's Kaiser's got, again. Vinci's the one I feel bad for. Dudes, they got there's no vignettes about Vinci right now. So.
Yeah, Vinci hopefully has an exit plan to Imperium, because Kaiser looks like he's ready to take off whenever that happens. We move on to Becky Lynch, who is talking about her new book coming out, and Xia Li shows up and asks when's it her turn, and Becky Lynch says she's not hard to find. Then Tegan Nox and Becky Lynch have a match. Well, we get a promo from Tegan first, and Natty gives Tegan some love. We get the match. Nox works the arm, but Becky still gets the win. After the match, Tegan's bummed. Natty, Kaden, and Katana all say it's okay, but Chelsea and Piper call it a pity party. So next week we got Piper versus Natty happening. Justin, I got to go to the beginning here, and Baby Ice, you'll appreciate this here in the chat. Xia Li comes up to Becky Lynch and is like, when do I get a title shot? And Becky Lynch is like, I'm not hard to find, and walks away. And I'm thinking, Xia Li's asking you for a title shot. What do you she found you. What are you doing? Justin, Becky Lynch is ducking Xia Li.
It didn't make anybody look the greatest. I mean, I was happy to see Xia Li. I'm a fan of Xia Li. I like it, especially when she was NXT. I like the backstory they tried to do and all that stuff. They kind of got away from it, but yeah, this didn't make anybody look great.
It bugs me a little bit how Becky Lynch kind of dismisses a lot of people instead of I feel like she acts like a heel a lot of times.
Yeah, but I think that again, the hindsight 2020, we get to Tuesday morning quarterback. Is that tonight's goal for Becky Lynch? Excuse me. Was to get Tegan Nox over. So I don't even know if we should have had this backstage segment. Did it have to be this week? Because it was counterproductive. You know, it was counterproductive to what Becky Lynch was there to do tonight, which was to get Tegan Nox over, which that was a whole other, which we'll get to in a second. That was a whole other obstacle.
Mm-hmm. And Jimmy, speaking of Tegan Nox, she took the loss today. Do you think that she did a good enough job, as you always say, of getting over without going over?
I thought it was okay. And the big thing at the end was obviously, the show of respect from Becky Lynch, from the champ, which I think was the nice send off for this. And to Justin's point, going backstage and doing all that stuff afterwards, it felt, it did almost feel like a pity party. Everybody coming over and going, no, they're trying to drill it into everybody's head. Hey, you know what? You did a great job, even though you lost. But still, if you're not first,
you're last.
Yeah. So yeah.
It was interesting. I would say, I always like to say if wrestlers were stock, do you buy or sell? I would say buy in Tegan Nox right now, though, because Cole even said basically he didn't use getting over without going over, but he literally was saying she may not have won, but she sure proved to a lot of people that she belongs here in this situation. And so I think that he's only saying that because he knows that she's going to be in that situation. Right. I will say, the pity party, after Tegan Nox lost, I don't know if it was the right three people to come over and say it's okay, because it was three people who have pretty spotty win-loss records who came over. It wasn't like Raquel Rodriguez came over and was like, hey, it's okay. Don't worry. You'll get back. It was like, maybe it should have been some people who were on a little bit of a win streak who say it's okay. I will say Wade Barrett, line of the night, though, said Chelsea Green could start an argument in an empty room.
I'm stealing that one for sure.
That's so good. But we get to the end of the show. Backstage, Drew and Jay almost get in a fight, but Sammy stops the fight. We eventually get to the tag team match. It's fun, as you would expect, and the champs retain, as you would expect. Post-match, Sammy shakes everyone's hand, and so does Kevin Owens. Justin, it looks like these guys are all friends again. I'll be honest, I was expecting a stunner right at the end there, but it seems like all the good guys, they're on the same page.
Well, yeah, I mean, a stunner would have been a more climactic ending, but I think this was good because, so Cody and Jay win the tag titles. Kevin Owens has been cool. Obviously, Sami Zayn's peacemaker with everybody, right? Sami's cool with everybody. KO has been cool with Cody. Obviously, KO still has a huge problem with Jay. So I thought that actually, really, again, in hindsight, had Cody and Jay won the tag titles, and because KO and Sami are still there, this was almost kind of necessary. It was kind of like, logically, you should kind of think, well, where the hell is KO with all this? So I thought it was a good way to acknowledge history, to let them, fight it out, get their differences aside, but then respect was earned, and we ended it with the hug and the acknowledgement to each other. So I also think that, again, a little bit more long-term, you've got Survivor Series coming, in about a month and a half, that these are four baby faces you might want to put together. And you would have had to probably solve KO's issues with Jay. You needed to do all this and hash this out for it to make sense for them to be willing to band together at a Survivor Series in the not so distant future. So I overall, I thought this was the story tonight was good and fun for what it was.
Yeah, I think long term, I definitely agree with you, Justin. I think this is the way they should be moving with Survivor Series looming. Jimmy, where are you at with these characters and this story? Are you still into it, or are you getting a little bit of Sammy, KO, Jey Uso, Cody Rhodes? Can they work together? Can they not work together? Fatigue?
No, I kind of like it because you got a team like Sammy and KO. Sammy and KO are like not quite good cop, bad cop. It's almost like good cop and questionable cop. You know what I mean? And on the other side, here's Cody teaming with someone who he was, rivals with, or was part of a group he was battling, and they're getting along. Or is this a long, drawn-out process by the bloodline to kind of lure people in? You talk about fantasy booking, maybe somewhere down the line, Jey Uso and the bloodline reunite, and the story continues with Cody and them, because they keep mentioning, his story playing out, and that Michael Cole mentioned it a few times. So it's not gone away. They keep bringing it up. So it's in the back of everybody's mind, him versus Roman Reigns, I think, still to this point. And now him teaming with Jey Uso has got everybody going, okay, is this going to continue to work out? Or is there something else in the works here?
We got a long way to go until Survivor Series. So I got to imagine that these guys aren't going to be on the same page from now until then. I'm sure there'll be some interesting situations that crop up between the group, but we'll have to see how that all plays out. As is, that does it for the show. Everyone in the chat, let me know what your overall thoughts were of this week's episode of Monday Night Raw. And before we go, as always, Jimmy, what were your overall thoughts, and where can the world find you online?
I thought it was a decent show. I thought it progressed storylines. It got people thinking. And as I said several times, I want to see what happens next. And that's the main thing. You want people coming back and getting invested and wanting to see, maybe not in certain situations for the right reasons, but at least I want to come back and see what happens. And as far as where you can find me here on Monday nights with you guys, Triple J, doing our thing. And usually on Wednesday nights, I don't know what's happening this week. I guess we'll stay tuned and we'll find out. And as far as the Reffing It Up podcast with my good brother in stripes, Brian Hepper, and I'll be back, I believe, next week. Back at it with my good brother NRJ, who holds it all together. And as far as where you can catch me on social media, on all my social media platforms, watch my Ref and Rants, where it's just a minute long. As I always say, my critiques are not to tear down, but to help tighten screws that I believe need tightening.
And Justin, I know you got a big weekend coming up. What were your overall thoughts of the show? Where can the world find you online? And where can the world catch you walking the walk?
Yeah, I thought the show was fun. It was good. It's I'm really interested. This is both Raw and SmackDown and NXT, I guess, that we have Crown Jewel coming up. And Crown Jewel is always one of those shows. Again, they try to make this marquee pretty sexy. We already know we're gonna have a title match with Seth and Drew. Not taken away from that, but those are two full-time regular guys. These Crown Jewel, the Saudi shows rather, tend to have a Brock, a Cena, somebody who is on the part-time set. So I'm curious to see what are they going to build up that both satisfies the appetite for the Saudi Arabia level shows, but also to the Triple H creative vision, doesn't detour us too far out and stays in line with creative and continues to build and then build following to Survivor Series. So that's the big picture of what I'm watching for. And that may even come in play tomorrow night, Tuesday night with NXT. Cody's got an announcement. Maybe Cody's announcement somehow affects. Maybe it's Cody versus Undertaker Crown Jewel. I don't know. As you were loving to
yes, that'll be if Akira is not available.
If Akira's not available, it's crazy. At Justin LaBar across the socials here with you guys. I guess we're not here Wednesday night because there's no Jimmy. There's no Wednesday night Dynamite. So, but here on Wrestling Inc., of course, busted open on Friday morning. Spar with LaBar. Check me out there. And then yes, this weekend Saturday, David Allen. It's David and Allen ALAN. David Allen does my custom suits. Started here with people, lowbrow like me. I happen to introduce this guy to a few wrestlers. Next thing you know, he's now John Cena's stylist. He's now doing Pat McAfee suits. He's got Braun Strowman. He's got Mojo Rawley. He's got Wardlow. He's got some great musicians. We got a hell of a lineup coming into Pittsburgh this Saturday for the fashion show. It's a charity event. Hit me up on social or type it in Google, David Allen Fashion Show. Going on this Saturday. Still a few tickets left if you want to be part of it. But yeah, I got a brand new suit that I'm picking up tomorrow, and I'm excited to walk that walk, style and profile. Woo! And it's going to be a hell of a night. Pictures and video all to be at a high class premium when the event's all over.
Well, I may have to check them out so I can peek through some of those suits and update my wardrobe here. So definitely can't wait to see that. Make sure to follow Wrestling Inc. for all your wrestling news. Of course, shout out to everyone in the chat. Dream Realm, MDB999, Killer of Demon 669, David. We got Power Baby. We got Baby Ice. We got lots of it updated. Scott Langford, Montez, Adam Staples. When I'm reading through the names, sometimes when I post another one, it puts me right back at the bottom. I got to scroll back up fast again. But of course, NYC Demon Diva, always great to see you hanging out. Thank you for supporting the shows, even the ones you're not on. It's very appreciated. You can find me at Real Jack Farmer across all social media. I just did PCW Ultra's ring announcing. Yeah, you can check that out on remix.tv for a free replay. That's WREMIX.tv. Free replays there. My next show I'm going to be doing commentary for is going to be Santino Bros Night of the Human Death Match on October 26th. Ooh. That one's going to have me going, ew, ugh. That's what I'm going to be saying the whole show because death matches are, but it's going to be what I'm doing. You can check that out as well as we get closer to that. In the meantime,
don't let them touch your hair, Jack.
Yeah,
no one's touching.
No chainsaws to your head.
I'm gonna look like I'm at a Gallagher show. I'm gonna have the thing on so that nothing gets on me. But I'll be on for NXT tomorrow, and I'm gonna be honest with you guys. I don't know. I reached out. I don't know if we're doing AEW also tomorrow. I don't know what the plan is. We'll find out tomorrow, I guess. But I'm covering NXT. That's what's planned. And
maybe you're doing one stream and we're doing another stream. We're both going to go commercial free ahead, but one of us gets an over. Maybe we're going to
And well, you guys don't know. I'm going to have to reach out. I'm going to get like Matt Morgan to come back for a special episode. I'm going to get Raj to come back. I'm going to bring all the special guests back.
There you go.
I got Cena coming on to make an announcement on mine.
Oh, that's not fair. Well,
welcome to Tony Khan's life tomorrow.
There you go.
Seriously, it's not fair. But anyways, that does it for us. We'll see you guys tomorrow for the biggest Tuesday in wrestling